Hello, everybody. I suppose I just want to say I'm a mother with two amazing daughters. I am a psychotherapist and I work with the Donegal Women's Centre. I've been a psychotherapist now for almost 25 years. A lot of my, I suppose, work is actually in the area of trauma and dissociation. And I have also been involved with breathwork, mindfulness and meditation for over 20 years as well. And I've lived all my life by the ocean. And I think the university for me is the ocean. And, you know, I just love the whole concept of well-being. And we have such a great need for it now in the world. And it is about a state of being contented, safe, secure, and about being happy. And, you know, I travelled to a Himalayan kingdom, Bhutan, and their gross national product is happiness. And I thought, wow, what would that be like in our country to have a gross national product of happiness? And I also wondered, I worked quite a bit and still do down in Killybegs, and I often wondered when I looked out at the sea, what's it like to look from the sea into the land, and what do we see? And, you know, that viewpoint shows us houses and people and a community. And what I did was just gather some of the voices of that community together and how they see themselves, because they are also us. And one of the biggest things that came up was about relationship and connection and the absolute importance of that sense of being interconnected. And this young woman who is speaking here is really reflective, I think, of so many families that work out of coastal fishing communities. You know, we've either grown up in families, we have families of our own, and can you imagine what it's like where very often fishermen are out, if they're lucky, 6 weeks and back home. And the incredible level of isolation that can actually happen within a home, where someone has to become independent, become the main nurturer, and then the person comes back from the sea and they have to try to find a way to reconnect time and time again. And it does create a lot of hardships, and it also creates a lot of hardships sometimes for children growing up. There is an amazingness to it because it's all about that connection to the sea and the understanding that happens because people truly love the sea. And for this young woman, and I would have heard it so many times over the years, the importance of being out in nature, you know, being able to walk in nature, being able to walk on the beaches, feel the air, hear the birds. And also in our coastal community are a lot of people, and again I feel people here will connect with this story of people who are either bachelors, spinsters, widowed, living right across the coast and sometimes feeling very isolated. But one of the things that they spoke about was that depth of attachment to the land. The real importance for them was a connection to the sea or the land. And that managed to ground them, and I think to help them to survive. Because again, you know, they would often talk about what it's like to walk the beach and not feel lonely. That's the power of nature. Nature is an incredible healer. You know, it has its own destructive forces that we well know, but it also has that beauty of healing. And the surfing community. And obviously, again, a deep connection to the surfing community. And, you know, one of the things that I just find amazing is how many young people really want a bit of guidance. You know, it's a bit like what you were both talking about with Renifix. When you gather people together, when they don't feel they're on their own, what they can do is so powerful. And Becky Finn would have spoken quite a bit about the 2-minute beach cleanup. And I know that so many of the surfers have said, oh God, you know, every time we go out surfing now, we pick up the plastic bags. We're actually beginning to awaken and become aware of the impact within our own ocean, you know, of seeing, say, broken down sewage pipes and seeing them leaking into the ocean and the effect of that. And I live beside a lake where There are between 400 and 600 swans. The hoopers come in over the winter, and the impact that can happen where the rims of plastic bottles, you know, when they come off those rings, get stuck in the swans' beaks. They can't eat and they die. And, you know, just those things to open and awaken to an awareness of that. And, you know, also in terms of tourism and everything else, I just see how much surfing, every single day I see surfers in the water. And also rowing has come back really big into the community as well. And it's so important to gauge young people, you know, they are our future too. And as Sean beautifully spoke about down in Mulranny, you know, the dry stone walling is another amazing way. All winter long, I see people out rebuilding the seawalls that have got tossed. Again, where people are aware of the impact of the power of the ocean and how the lands can get flooded and get lost. And I've also spoken to, you know, island community people out in Inisheer who talked about trying to kind of reclaim the land through the stone wall building. But the greatest joy was when other people come along and do it together. And it's a metal, you know, it's that idea of passing on skills that maybe we felt we'd lost and that are back now. And I think it's wonderful to see and experience that. And just to lead into mindfulness, mindfulness is really about being present in the moment and the power of what that's like to be present. And just again, a couple of the voices, you know, a skipper talked about, you know, not destroying the coastal community, but building it up. And sometimes people can feel, you know, I'm very aware that things that have impacted are like the fish quotas over the years, the sense of EU directives that come down, and sometimes people feel alienated because they feel they're not part of that process. And really what they're talking about is community engagement. It's about opening the community up so that their voices can get heard as well. And I believe when that happens, even sometimes compromises can get reached and people don't feel so isolated. And one of the beautiful things that Dr. Britton has written in her papers is talking about attachment and the importance of it. And her work was embedded in fishing communities right across Northern Ireland and in Ireland. And one of the big things that she said is the factors that people really want community. They want to be safe and they want health. So, you know, research, I suppose, has come back up. The National Centre for Coastal Ocean talks about, you know, monitoring the well-being of communities and that our environment affects who we are and our environment affects our well-being. So I'm kind of just going to explore that just a little bit and then I'll finish up. But, and, you know, the whole idea of resilience and recovery are so important in communities. And it's about really, no one, I believe, monitors better the well-being of a community than the community itself. And I feel for all of us, even as a clean coastal community, when we become aware of what's happening in our own environment, we're the people who can see where sewage is leaking into oceans. Areas, as Seamus talked about in Mullaghmore, you know, that's now like a high dump area. Those things really matter. They do impact. It's seen how in Mulranny, how that community went down and then the care came back in from a community response and built it back again. And it's beautiful to just see that actually research even had shown what I think we all do truly know, that, you know, being in connection with the ocean is really good for us as human beings. And then sometimes people say, you know, well, this is very aspirational. You know, we've read these frameworks and documents that have come out and they're all saying to do things, and someone can feel, well, what can I do? And I know one time I stood outside a funeral of another young person who had committed suicide in the community, and I felt, well, what can I do? And I saw all these young men standing around and I thought, and one of the things is, and again that got spoken about earlier this morning, you know, it's about community leaders and who are they. And I made contact with a man, Neely Gallagher, in the community who's a marine engineer, and he's worked for a number of years in men's sheds and in curragh building projects to get men to come together over the winter time to actually build curraghs that they could use and reintroduce, and they are now reintroduced back into Killybegs after decades of not being there. And he's also worked for years in the field of addiction. And the two of us got together and we designed a programme called Health and Wellbeing. But the difference about this programme, which we ran for a year in the beginning, was that it's connected to the community. It was participant driven, it was embedded in the community, it was open to men and women, and it was open to people of all ages. And I know from my own work, and I said from years of working with trauma, that the biggest and most important thing is that people are listened to, that they feel heard. And that's come back time and again across the board, the power of being listened to. There's a beautiful Persian poet who said, "How do I listen? How do I listen? As if somebody were speaking to me their precious last words." And like, what a power that is, to be heard at that depth. And the community also brought in the issues that impacted on them, addiction being one of those issues that they saw not only within their community, but also how it affected their children. And they spoke about the issues of suicide, of violence that sometimes can arise in the home, and also the huge monetary pressures that they were facing, and the fact that boats are left maybe sitting up for large periods of time, and you've got a lot of young men unemployed and feeling very disillusioned. And they brought in different speakers and shared those stories and got a lot of support and information. And this group decided to set up a service that was for listening, support and information, but that it was based in the community. And it was also about giving help to members right across the community of all ages. And many of them are really good at working with, I suppose, the whole area of social media, because if you want to attract young people, that's how they get attracted to it, and the importance of that. And they now provide a listening service. They're also aware of things, you know, even that men will mostly text, they don't like phone calls, and that they can come in and get support within their community. Because so often, you know, I've seen all these amazing, over the whole day, all the amazing organisations we have. But sometimes people either are afraid because they're individuals, what's it like to go into those communities? So they have visited and also got speakers from Clean Coast to come down and visit the communities so that they could tell people, here's the connections, here's people you can meet, we can connect you with different organisations. And just that power alone within a community, there are now a number of young men engaged in it. It's so important what we can do. And, you know, it's so often talked about vision, you know, where everyone can enjoy their physical and emotional health and well-being. And mindfulness is a very important part of that. And really it's, I suppose, for me and for so many people who now practice in mindfulness, it's about the greatest journey we'll ever take, and that's the journey from our head into our hearts. And the community then, the group that started, built into 40 people and then expanded even more. And they did a year's course around mindfulness because they felt they needed to get healthy and well within themselves, first of all. And from that, you know, they also began to realise and discover that if we connect inside of ourselves, we connect into our environment and we start to take care of our environment. And really understanding how that healthy lifestyle can contribute. You know, we have that beautiful, I said, the Wild Atlantic Way, and it's lovely to see that we start to build a healthy community out of it, and that community continues to grow and expand and share that awareness with other people. And just briefly, I want to say to you, because I know people are, I said, under pressure with time, mindfulness is, it's scientifically researched, it's evidence-based, and it has really shown how much it can actually help people, and mindfulness-based stress reduction as well. And one of the greatest recommendations is that if people could do 3 minutes every day, that you would actually increase your health and well-being at least on a minimum of 50 to 70%, even by 3 minutes every single day. And the first minute of mindfulness is really about being aware, taking a breath and becoming aware of how you are feeling. And right now, I'd say a lot of people are feeling a bit tired and probably incredibly hungry. And what are your thoughts? You know, is your mind busy or quiet? And then your physical sensations. Are you sitting now feeling areas of tension or tightness? And in your second minute, it's about a gathering of all that together. And the breath being like a wave that goes through your body from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. And in the third minute, it's about breathing that out into the sounds that are outside, the sounds that we hear, that interconnection with the people who are beside us. And if people could do 3 minutes every day of mindfulness and do a 2-minute beach cleanup, which is an amazing program, from Clean Coasts, that's 5 minutes in your day where you as a person can individually affect your own health and well-being. You impact on the health and well-being of your community, and you impact on your environment. And, I think out of that, that's a pretty powerful thing. I'm going to finish up. I mean, I know people are on time here. I just wanted to finish with the words of one of the world's greatest peace activists. He's a Zen Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, and I suppose given what's happening in the world today, it feels so important. And what he says is, walk as if your feet are kissing the earth. So thank you so much. Thank you.